Here we're going to look at topic 73, example 1, solve a quadratic equation using square roots. How can you use square roots to solve each equation? In part A, we have x squared equals 16, and what we want to notice is that both sides of the equation, the left and the right side, are perfect squares. So what you can do is you can take the square root of each side, which effectively undoes, you're undoing the square. So same way we would undo, say, plus 5, we would do minus 5. Or if we had times 15, we would then divide by 15. We're undoing operations. Well, if you're squaring something, to undo that operation, you could take the square root. So on the left side, the square root of x squared would just be x. And then the square root of 16 we know is 4. Except we have to make sure that we take the positive and the negative roots of that 4. All right, so there's two solutions. It would be positive 4 and negative 4. All right, make sure you're writing both solutions when solving that equation. Now, in part B, we're looking to do the same thing, but this time on the right side, we have the square root of negative 9. Well, as far as we're concerned up to this point, we really can't take the square root of a negative number, right? Because nothing times itself is going to give us a negative number. But what we can do is you can use the properties of radicals. Let me fix that. And you can change that square root of negative 9. You can rewrite that as radical 9 times radical 1. Which then shows me that radical 9, I can then take the square root of 9, which is 3. Again, use that positive and negative. And then that square root of negative 1 we'll bring down for now because we don't know what to do with that. Right. The solution to this one in part B, right here. There's more to do from there, and this is what we're going to introduce that's new, is that the solution is not a real number, right? But they're part of our number system called the complex numbers. Okay, so we have what are called complex numbers. And in the complex number system, the square root of negative 1 is called the imaginary unit I. So it's the imaginary unit I, which you may have seen before, you may not have, but the imaginary unit I is represented by, other way around. The square root of negative 1 is represented by the imaginary unit I. So anywhere you have the square root of negative 1, you're allowed to replace it with this I, which represents a complex number. So I can take this final solution where we stopped with these stars, and I can actually write this as x is equal to positive and negative 3I. And then this here is a complex number. All right, and it's part of my number system, but we haven't dealt with complex numbers yet. We're now going to start introducing them in this section. Just notice it's called complex numbers. So you have that. Example 1, you're just looking to square each side, solve them. A shows something that we're a little bit more familiar with. B shows us what to do if there is a negative. All right, so you're allowed to use the property of radicals, and then one of the properties of complex numbers being that square root of negative 1 is the imaginary unit I.